Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new here, welcome. My name is Celine. I help empaths on their healing journey and stepping into alignment with their purpose. So in today's video, I want to talk about my spiritual awakening and my healing journey. So I've just finished doing the first podcast for Rumble. It's my story from trafficking, SRA, basically growing up in an Illuminati cult. So I've shared a bit of my story over there on Rumble just now. And each week we'll be going into different kind of aspects of how all this works, such as hunting parties, which I didn't actually mention in that video. I completely forgot, but we will do separate videos on that. We'll do separate videos on how the trafficking works, how the people work, how they're all interconnected from top to bottom. Basically just everything really to kind of give you that perspective of, yeah, well, it's quite mind-blowing really, isn't it, finding out about all the SRA and trafficking and things. And I hadn't remembered, which I'll get into in a minute, until 2019. So even for me as a survivor, it was baffling and I couldn't get my head around a lot of it, especially the whole job title thing. Anyway, if you want to find out more about that, go over to my Rumble channel. It will be up there soon. I will drop a link in the description, so you can go over there and subscribe, and we'll be going into different aspects, as I say, every week. So in this video, we're going to keep it spiritual and healing here on YouTube, because I do not want to lose my YouTube channel. As you know, my following is growing, and also I have like 6 years worth of videos on here I don't really want to lose. Although I will probably be redoing them again at some point, but you know, it's not the point, is it? I don't want to be banned. So there we go. So yeah, if you want to see that, hop over at Rumble. So, my spiritual awakening. I kind of had a reawakening. I was awake when I was a child, so I was able to remote view. I was connected to source and spirit, and I could communicate with them and get guidance from them. And they protected me, actually, especially the angels, when I was being abused, sexually abused. I always felt protected and like I was taken away, and looked after by them and cuddled and stuff. So anyway, I had my reawakening in 2017, as a lot, well, 2012 it started. But basically I went into a dark night of the soul. So what triggered that was my ex-husband and I split up. He ended up having my 4 children through lies and all sorts, which I didn't understand at the time, even though I had evidence, you know, that all this was kind of playing out. And it threw me into what's called a dark night of the soul. So a dark night of the soul is basically when we get thrown into hermit mode and we go within, but we're feeling extremely depressed, fearful, anxious, all those sorts of emotions. And sorry, someone just walked past my window and distracted me. Might be my daughter. So throw me off on a tangent. So yeah, so I went into a dark night at the soul, so I was feeling quite like that. Couldn't get out of bed in the mornings. I had nothing to live for anymore, because, you know, I had built my whole life around my children. Probably, well, as a consequence of the trauma that I experienced as a child. Even though I hadn't remembered the extent of it, the damage was still there. So from there, I started feeling kind of guided to look into Buddhism, first of all, and also narcissists. So I started learning a lot about narcissists. I started finding groups with other people in and reading their stories and seeing how similar it was to mine, if not exact in a lot of cases. And I started kind of getting this feeling that, like, they're all reading from the same script. It's like they're giving some sort of guidebook for this stuff. So I so yeah, so I went on from there and learnt about that. Then I discovered about empaths and I started reading up more about empaths, and then I realised actually that's what I am. I'm an empath. And from there, it went into light work, and then I found out I was a healer, which is predominantly what I do really with the mindset work and also the energy healing work or clearing work. And I teach others how they can heal themselves. So that was kind of how that came about really, and I was still stumbling around in the dark. It felt right to look at this stuff. I'd suddenly get an idea in my head or what seemed like an idea, and I'd go and look that up. Obviously, I was awakening to the matrix at the same time, so I was learning all about that, like the SRA. I started learning about that before I remembered, and the mind control, the trafficking that's been going on, that kind of thing, the heroin in Afghanistan, and yeah, you name it. I was down those rabbit holes. So then that brought us into 2017, and that's when my spiritual reawakening really started kicking in. I realised that those thoughts or conversations I was having in my head was actually spirit. So I had always been connected. That was always there, even though I'd forgotten what that was. Didn't even realise other people had this ability. Sometimes I even used to question it. And, like in my mind, like, am I talking to myself? Are you real? I'd try and like say something really quick and catch them out. Yeah, I had a bit of fun with it really. So yeah, then obviously I reawakened to the fact that actually this is spirit and I am communicating with spirit and being guided, and I've got spirit guides and all the rest of it. So then I started learning more about healing. So at the time I had anxiety, depression and CPTSD, and I was starting to get a bit of fibromyalgia as well. I was really starting to ache and stuff and tense up and things. And I was only in my 30s at this point. So I started learning about meditation, breath work, and that was initially how I started it. Then the things I could remember that needed healing, that had really hurt me, such as the trauma from losing my first four children, I kind of was able then to work through that and choose to let go of that and release it, because I wasn't releasing them or my love for them as I had to kind of reprogram in my mind. I was letting go of the pain of what had happened because that was gone. And by this point, I think we were about 5 years later by that point. So, I'd had all that time of that pain, not to mention all the pain from the past, having a narcissistic husband and, my childhood as well, because my childhood wasn't great. I just didn't remember how bad it actually was until obviously 2019. So I was able to kind of do that. And by doing that, within a couple of months, I'd let go of all my anxiety. My depression was gone. I was a lot happier, even though I was working through these traumas. And when you work through the traumas, the feelings of it come up. So it can feel like in that moment, it's happening again. And you feel like you did at the time when that trauma was happening. So a lot of times when people trigger us in future events, sometimes they're not coming from a toxic place or meaning to trigger you in that way, but you feel like they are because they've just triggered all those emotions and feelings of the last time you felt or another time you felt like that. So then you think that person's doing this to you when actually they aren't. So you have to kind of be aware of that as well, especially when you're in the healing stages, because you will meet other people who will trigger you. They'll act like a mirror. They will trigger you into things. You'll think that's them deliberately trying to cause you harm, when actually they could be a genuine person and really not meaning what they're doing, certainly not in the way that you're feeling it. And then you realize that you need to go back to the root of the issue. Now, sometimes you'll know what that is. Sometimes you might have to ask yourself, where is this coming from? When did it start? And your subconscious will bring up the memory of the incident. You then have to work on that. That will be your inner child, basically. So you're giving that love to your inner child, you're reparenting them, you're telling them whatever they needed to hear at the time. You can also take them out of the memory, and you could build a safe space in your head, like a house somewhere, or, whatever it may be that is loving and nice and exciting to your inner child. And you can take them out of the bad memory and put them there, so you're rescuing them in a sense. That then in your mind will release that trauma. That's what that process is actually doing. It tells your mind now that you are free from that memory and you're ready to let it go, and the pain will also release. So the pain can come out as crying. You might purge it out. Certainly in the beginning, you're more than likely going to purge. Other times it can come out as burps, and they'll feel kind of stuck here, especially in the back on the opposite side. They feel kind of stuck and really hard to move. You kind of feel that building. You might need to kind of push it out. I know this isn't quite a nice conversation, but this is kind of the process you go through. And you're releasing that there, that's the energy. And that's what releases all the aches and pains and traumas from the body. So really when we're healing, we want to be doing a somatic healing, which is what I do. So we're reframing the mind and the trauma in that sense, and the story we might have told ourselves in the beginning. We're reframing that, but then we're also releasing that energy, that trauma that was trapped within our bodies. Because when trauma happens, if we don't know how to release it, it will stay stored, and that's what causes all those issues and diseases, because it's trauma that's stored in the body. So a lot of the time you can heal things just by simply healing through your traumas. And certainly my fibromyalgia completely reversed within a couple of months as well. And as I say, my anxiety depression was gone. My CPTSD was there in small doses. I was able to get to sleep at night. I wasn't waking up with racing thoughts. That had all completely settled down. Um, I used to get a lot of flashbacks in the morning when I woke up, so I'd relive the trauma at that point of my 4 children being taken and not having them. So then most of my day then would be about stabilising myself, bringing myself back into reality, where I am now, because at this point I was remarried and I had 3 children, 2 or 3 children by that point, with my second husband, which is, I've talked about all that in the podcast on Rumble, so you can go over there and check that out. So, I had to kind of bring myself back into that reality. And also the fact that this was now over 5 years later, and those other 4 had grown up, they were relatively all right. Obviously, they went through a lot of trauma themselves, so they weren't, but they were, if that makes sense. They had a home, they were going to school, they had the basics at least. So yeah, that was kind of what my CPTSD was. So that was kind of the first thing I had to let go of, really, and not keep waking up on that repeat cycle every single day, which was where the depression and stuff was coming from as well. So that obviously that did die down a lot the more I started kind of realizing that I can let go of these traumas. I also want to let go of these traumas. I want to heal, because these are all choices you've got to make in your mind. If you have the intention to do something, you will do it with determination, no matter how hard it is. So that kind of was initially easy in the beginning. It was quite a easy process to go through. I started working, I was doing reads for people, psychic reads. I wasn't using tarot cards at that point, I'd simply just channel the information. I was doing mediumship reads as well. And I was moving into more of that healing side, and I started teaching about the anxiety and depression, CPTSD, and how we can heal that. And I was getting loads of comments back off people that were saying, like, within 2 weeks it had completely changed their lives, they were back out living their life, they were happy, things like that. So that did although that excited me, I did start thinking, like, yeah, I'm still not quite at that point. Like, what's going on here? And it was then that kind of the SRA side and the trafficking and the sexual abuse and everything started to unfold, the mind control. And yeah, the last 6 years since 2019 has been about healing from that and piecing my life back together, figuring out who I actually am and not who I thought I was or told I was from the mind control. Again, I go into all this in more detail on the podcast, so hop over there if you're interested in more. So, obviously, those were hard because the feelings coming up from then were horrific. And I'd forgotten a lot of it of how I actually felt in those moments, even with the things that I had remembered, never mind what I didn't. And I just had to keep working through it. I did also find as well that astrology reads really helped me because when I'd go into these periods of healing, sometimes I might be out of it for like a week or so, and these feelings would keep coming and coming. And even though I knew what I needed to do, sometimes in that moment I'd forget, or I'd think that I'd gone backwards and I'm never going to get better and stuff. And then I'd hear an astrology read, and it'd be saying about this planet's doing this and that planet's doing that. So therefore, you're going to have this coming up. You need to heal that, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, it's the energies. I'm all right. I'm not going backwards. There's nothing wrong with me. And sometimes that would pull me out of it in an instant, like, or certainly within a couple of hours. So I do recommend that as well, because sometimes if you're going to do this on your own and without someone like me to do it or anyone else, you will need those reminders that you're not being consumed by this, and it is just you just need to get through this little bit of healing. Once that's done, you've released those emotions and let them go, and comforted your inner child, doing all that process, because you're doing the same process on repeat. That's it. You will get through it. And depending on your level of trauma or the amount of years you've had, will depend on how quickly it is. So that's why this person took 2 weeks, because they probably didn't have all the childhood trauma that goes with it. I think they did have a narcissistic husband, but they'd got out of that relationship, so they were ready anyway to kind of start living their lives again, and finding that happiness. So there wasn't as much for them to have to work through trauma wise. So just simply changing their thoughts, it was changing our thoughts from positive to negative. 3 things or more I love about me every week. Um, Learning to feel your feelings again and recognize them. And this actually also all plays a part in manifesting. Because when you can nail all these things down and you've also healed and got rid of all those, your lower vibration, your vibration starts coming up. This is also how you manifest as well, the things you want to come into your life. And it will work a lot more because you've healed. A lot of the times manifestations don't work because your thoughts aren't in alignment with what you want. So you're thinking negatively, the what ifs can go wrong and how is it possible, stuff like that. So that's kind of the process really that I had to go through, and I just had to keep following it. And then I did meet someone over the last couple of years, and our dynamic's been very much about triggering and healing. So I can't remember now if I mentioned it in this video or the last Rumble video, but what I was saying was that you've got to recognize that the feelings could be from the past, and this new person isn't necessarily triggering you because they're toxic or because they mean it in that way. And you could be taking it a lot worse because you've got that past trauma that's been triggered, so it kind of impacts on the present, and that's what the issue is. So if you can then go back to that root, try not to react to this person until you've worked through your issues and you know whether they're a genuine asshole or it was something just to help you recognize it in yourself to heal. And then if you do go on and forgive them, if they do it again, then you know they did it on purpose, because by you healing, it's meant to heal that energy. Therefore, they won't repeat those things because you've just healed it. That's the point spiritually. It's how it works, or it's how it can work. It can also work like that if you are dealing with a narcissist and you are aware of it, but you can't get away in the present moment. Those things they trigger you with, they know what your traumas are, and they're basically picking at the scabs. So what you can do is start healing the things that trigger you, so they no longer trigger you anymore. They can't keep picking at those scabs. Those scabs will then heal, and you've done that yourself. So you can actually start using the other person to your advantage, and you can do it that way, because we don't always see the traumas or the negative patterns in ourselves that we need to heal until we're faced with it by someone else, and we come into that realization. Then we're able to do something about it if we need to, whether that's leaving or healing the root, going back to the root. You might not know what it is, so ask, where is this coming from? And you should come up with a memory, and you'll start getting that feeling at the time, and you'll remember it. You'll remember it like you were that child when it was happening. And then you can like comfort them, as I say, do what you need to do, say what you need to say, and get them out of that situation if you need to. You can then come back and deal with the present moment of, do I need to get rid of this person? Or have they just basically done me a favour, and it's just part of this spiritual dynamic that is playing out? Because we have soul contracts as well, a lot of times. And some people, soulmates, will come into our lives just to go through that healing period and then disappear again. We might never see them again, or they might become something different within our lives. You know, if it was a relationship, you could become really good friends instead, or vice versa. You know, so it all completely depends on your situation. But they're the sorts of things that happen. So I would recommend that with any new person, because while you're healing, you don't want to be kind of toxic to other people. So it is best to try and pull back if you're feeling like that. Get yourself together, work through your trauma, and then deal with what you need to deal in the present moment, when you're like completely clear of the past and you can think straight, which doesn't take long. It sounds like it. Sometimes it can take minutes, depends what it is. Sometimes it can be hours. Sometimes, as I say, it can be days. Sometimes it can consume you until you hear something that says, oh, this is what's going on right now in the energies, you know, and then that pulls you out of it as well. So it is a process, as I say. You've just got to keep going, and you will get there. If you're determined enough and you want to heal, you will get there. Obviously, it took me longer as well, because I was doing it on my own. I had to piece it all back together. I had to remember so much of what had gone on in my past, who the people were that were around me and stuff like that. And, you know, and then healing from my kind of adult life, what I'd had to deal with there with my children and stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of the process I went through, really. I've just gone through another massive transformation this past year. That's why I've had a lot of time off last year. And I got to like July and I was like, right, I just need to pull back and completely take this time for myself. And I'm really glad I did it, because I feel completely different. I've got so much more confidence. I feel better about what I'm doing. I feel like I've got more of a kind of clear direction of what I want to do and how I want to help this channel grow, and Rumble as well now. You know, and I'm going to expose a lot more about the Illuminati world, because I think that is important for people to kind of understand for themselves as well, really, as well as anything else. And, you know, as I said in the Rumble video, what's playing out in spirituality, plus all this SRA and trafficking stuff, it all goes hand in hand, and it's all connected top to bottom. But I will go into more detail, as I said, about that. Each week we'll focus on a different thing and kind of work through it. So that will be on Rumble. The spiritual and the healing stuff will stay here on YouTube, so you can stay here for that. Or, as I say, if you want the more exposure stuff and more detail about the SRA and trafficking side and things and the Illuminati themselves, sorry, then yeah, you'll need to head over to Rumble because I don't want to lose my channel. So I will leave it there for this video. It is great to be back. I am super excited for what's to come. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If you've got any questions, as always, pop them in the comments below. If you want to work with me, then do visit the website where you can sign up. I have a 3-month program, or you can work with me doing sessions, hourly sessions, for healing or mentorship. It's up to you. So I will see you all in the next video. Enjoy your day. I hope everyone is well, by the way.